I am very pleased to be able to introduce Fred to you. Actually, most of what you need to know about him is on the slide behind me here, that he's the president of the Dutch Open University and chairing these two task forces, one which is European in scope and another which is international in scope on OER. I've had a number of occasions to visit with him and my relationship with OUNL over the years, and the most recently, a few months ago, I can't remember exactly when, visiting at OUNL and being told by him some of the things that are going on nationally. I just got so excited I didn't know what to do with myself, and I think I hijacked an entire lecture of the course I was teaching when I came back and just talked about what was happening in the Netherlands. It was so exciting. I do want, before I invite him to come up here though, with all the things that he's doing and that the OUNL is doing in OER, I think now's an appropriate time to announce that with Fred's support and the OUNL and with the support of the Open University in Catalonia, again with BYU supporting, we will be having Open Ed in Barcelona next year, co-hosted by OUNL, by WAC, and again with some help from BYU, so Barcelona. That has taken some doing and will continue to take some doing, and we're grateful for your willingness to help and support us in that. So, having said all that, I know I've had you applaud like 8 times now, but please, the biggest one for our closing keynote, Dr. Fred Mulder.
Well, thanks, David, for this short introduction. I would like to add that the next conference in 2010, of course, we had a big fight with the people from Barcelona about the real venue. And the fight was about Heerlen, which is a nice city in the southern part of our country, and Barcelona, which is this nasty city in Spain. But I was thinking about the audience, and of course, we were very quick in deciding that it should be Barcelona and not Heerlen in the Netherlands. But of course, be sure that we'll have the organization all together. And I would like to invite you to come next year to Barcelona at the next conference. It was my first experience here at OpenEd, and I was very impressed by the presentations and the content as I've heard it and I've seen it. And so I'm very pleased to be able to have the conference in Europe next year. Also, I'm pleased to have the occasion to give a presentation in this conference which has nothing to do with research. It's a policy-type presentation, and I hope you will enjoy it. And I hope you will take with you that after the lunch discussion that we had on the first day on policy issues here in Canada, more or less, we are able, I think, to bring this much further at the policy level. And I hope to show that that's the case in our country. First of all, I think I have to tell you a little bit about open universities, because Open Ed has open as a qualification in the theme of the conference, but open, of course, is a very traditional term already since decades for open universities in Europe mainly, and also in other continents of the world. And I would like to give a short introduction on my own university. We are one of the 14 high-quality universities in the country, and the Open University is steadily ranked second in the National Student Survey. So we are just part of the irregular system, although we have a different profile. Our profile is that we address ourselves to lifelong, open and flexible learning, as we call it, LOF learning, LOF, and if you would pronounce the F a little bit softer, it is love learning. We're also one of the 10 universities for love learning in Europe, the open universities in the UK, in Spain, in Italy, in France, in Germany, and so on. And we have about 20,000 students, and this year is our 25th anniversary. Open to us means, for years already, open in 5 ways. First of all, it's open access that we have, so anybody can start to study at the OUNL without any diploma. So there's no secondary education requirement at all. You can have an open programming facility, so you can take any course you want, you can take courses in the order you want, and you can take full programs, of course. There's the freedom of time, the freedom of place, and the freedom of pace. So those are the 5 qualifications of openness. So we are offering bachelor, master, and PhD programs, all fully accredited from 7 schools, cultural sciences, informatics, or as you would say, computing here in the US and in Canada, law, management sciences, natural sciences, psychology, and educational sciences. And we have 4 expertise centers in our university. The first one is called CELSTEC. It is the Center for Learning Sciences and Technology, formerly called OTEC, and David knows this center very well, I guess. And that's there since the start of the OU in 1984. Then we started a new Center for Professional Development of Teachers in 2002, and we started a Center for Education for Sustainable Development in 2005, and most recently we started an overall center which is an umbrella for all the research at the OUNL, which is called the Netherlands Laboratory for Lifelong Learning, and that started in 2007. Enough about the OUNL, and let's now go to the Netherlands as a country where we have seen a number of initiatives in the last couple of years. In 2006, we were the first in our country to start an open educational resources project at a small scale. Then in 2007, our colleague university, the Technical University of Delft, started another project. Those were institutional launches, and then after, we have seen some national launches as well. In 2008, the Spinoza series. In 2009, In 2009, the networked Open Polytechnic, and in 2009, the Wikiwijs initiative, which is more or less an all-inclusive initiative. I'm really having trouble with my throat, I'm sorry. First of all, the initiative at the OUNL. The objectives were to lower the thresholds for access to formal higher education, and also to increase and widen participation in the country into higher education. So to do that, we decided to have a large-scale offering of high-quality, very short open courses developed for self-study. Of course, that's our trademark, more or less. And the second means would be to create a portal of temptation, so to tempt people to enter higher education in a formal way. That brings me to the third issue, the bridge between informal learning, as you can do that through OER, and formal education is being strengthened by offering the opportunity to have an official examination after having studied the open courses at the OER portal. And you can earn credits for your bachelor program if you would do that. The main outcomes are that we had very intensive media attention. In 2006, when we started this whole thing, we would like to have a soft launch, but because one of the national papers decided to have the first headline on the front page on this initiative, there was no soft launch possible anymore. It was a hard launch, and we had to work very hard to get this done. But of course, it was very attractive also because we had a lot of interaction with the media, and many people came to the site. These days we have 25 open courses. They're all very small, as you see, 25 hours of study, and that is equivalent to, in Europe, 1 European credit. We've had 1 million unique visitors in a country with 16 million people as a population. That's quite sizable. And 10% of the people has reported to have had influence on their decision to enter higher education or not. The funding has come through the ministry and through the Youth Foundation. And it was a pretty modest funding as compared to the UK OU, who received about £9 million for their project. This was a much smaller project, but at the same time influential. Well, I think I'll skip the idea of getting to the website. You can do that on your own if you would like to. And I would like to go to the next, the second initiative, which, I'm sorry, I first have to continue with the OUNL initiative with some remarks, and then I'll go to Delft. And the remarks are about spin-offs that we've seen. Spin-offs in our country, for example, the initiative in Delft was really inspired by the initiative of the OUNL. And the second one is very interesting because, of course, you don't be constrained with the target groups for OER. You just can tell who will study the OpenER courses. Secondary schools are using these days our OpenER courses for their students to give them a better possibility for orientation on higher education, which includes examination for them as well. So the more excellent students would do that, but also students who just want to have a better orientation onto higher education. And the third spin-off, I will tell about that more later on, is the Spinoza series. There's also spin-offs in Europe. As you know, the UK OU and the OUNL were the first one to start OER projects in Europe as open universities. And we have this organization of open universities in Europe, and we started up a European project which is called MORAL, which says multilingual open resources for independent learning. And I can add that most of our colleagues these days are setting up a strategy with OER or already have done so. And one of the best examples, I think, is not a European Open University, but it's a member of the EDTU. It's the Turkish Open University, and they have about 1.4 million students, which runs about 40% of all students in Turkey. They decided last year to convert completely to OER. Now, we had some discussion in the university about how to continue with this nice little project, OpenER. How should we follow up on that? And there are some financial concerns about converting to a full OER strategy. So we had a big discussion with faculty how to do that. So we established a task force which came up with a report. In Dutch it says oer stom or oer slim, and OER, means in our language means going back to the fundamentals. And so oer stom, oer slim means in English terribly stupid or terribly smart. And they came up with a very elegant possible model for a sustainable introduction of OER at the university level. And it's a three-shell model. I think David has heard about it. And we are now starting to pilot with the model to make sure that it really is not too risky for the university to introduce it. We're also in touch with the Ministry of Education, because we think if we take risks as an open university, we should have something like a guarantee if something along the road is going wrong. So we're talking with them about a guarantee scenario, and also we're talking about the Wikiwijs project, which will be dealt with later on in this presentation. Now we go to Delft, the second initiative, and the objectives of Delft are very different from ours. They want to establish a better international reputation and a better orientation towards Delft worldwide. And of course they have expressed themselves to commit to the goals of OpenCourseware, of the OpenCourseware Consortium. And what they want is more students from other countries around the world. And not only more, but even more important is to have better informed students to get to Delft. And their means that they have is to offer parts of their master programs in OER, of course, in the English language. So our goal in the OUNL was to have a better introduction to higher education at the entry level, and the goal of Delft is much more to attract more people at a more advanced level. They started in October 2007 with 10 courses, and now, after a decision at the executive board level in January this year, they decided to continue the project and to extend it, and up to now they have 31 courses published. This is the website that you could visit, and there you can, because it's in English, you can understand that better than our own website, I guess. This is just a collection of courses that they're offering, and it's quite clearly engineering courses from a technical university. And they also had this discussion on the way forward, what should be the strategy, and they decided to really bring it further by launching a new website in 2009, and they want to include as well bachelor courses of the first year, with the same goal, that is to introduce students from secondary schools better to what the education at Delft is. They want to invest more heavily in future learning methods, and that's what they're doing in close collaboration with us. They want to increase the visibility of OCW courses anyway to their own students, and they want to have a special offering for specific target groups. They want to use the material for joint degrees with other universities around the world. They want to offer remedial courses, and finally they have created a separate portal for secondary schools, which is this, it's still under construction. The third initiative is a national one, and it's called the Spinoza series. And what we are aiming with that is to have the best Dutch researchers, the top researchers, bring their body of thought, their views, their expertise to a broader public. If you can do that, and if you are able to have them offering their body of thought in an open educational resources environment, then that's a very good role model for all the other researchers in our country. Who could say that you don't want to do this if the top of the research community is doing this? And the other idea is that possibly if we are doing this in the English language also, that we could use this for international exposure for Dutch top research. Now the means are in this case that we develop and offer courses at our own OpenER site with all the qualities that we offer: self-study material, activating material, interactive, different media, etc., etc. So it's not giving a video lecture by a top researcher, that's not good enough for us. So it's really a course, and it's also that you want people to exercise with the domain that the top researcher is addressing. So it's an activating thing, and the idea would be at the end that of course you could also earn credits for your bachelor program with these courses. We decided to work with the Spinoza Premium Laureates, and the Spinoza Premium is the highest and the most distinguished award in our country for research. And as you can see, it's also a very nice amount of money. It's 2.5 million euros that you will receive, and there's about 3 to 4 people every year who receive this award. And I was honored and happy to be on the jury for Spinoza last year, which helped quite a bit to establish this program. The main outcomes now are that in November 2008 we launched at the Spinoza ceremony this Spinoza series, and that's a collaboration of the OUNL with the Netherlands Organization for Scientific Research, and it was announced by the president of the NWO organization during the ceremony, and the minister was there. So it's interesting to know that our minister is one of the Spinoza premium winners years ago. Now, until now, we have a Hall of Fame of 2 courses, so it's pretty modest yet. And the first one is interesting. It is a course from Frits van Oostrom, and he was the president of the Royal Academy of Sciences in our country until last year. So that was a very good example to start with. And it's a course on medieval literature. I mean, it's not the most sexy subject, but it's a very nice course. And Frits van Oostrom not only is a very good scientist, but also is a very good author. He writes books, and people read those books. And so he was a very good first researcher to do this. And the second one is Johan van Bentum. He is our top logician, and he produced a course on logic in action, a very new view on how to teach logic. And that will also be published in English. And actually the discussion with Johan was that we should really have a bilingual approach to this site, not only in Dutch but also in English, and we want to set up that. There's much interest among many Spinoza laureates for this initiative. Actually, it's a capacity problem on our side, because we want to develop courses with them, and of course you need experience and expertise to do that. This is Spinoza. He's a famous Dutch philosopher centuries ago. And I must say, Robert Schuwer is being mentioned here. Robert Schuwer Probably many people here in the room know him because he has been here, I think, 2 or 3 times. And Robert is our project manager for the Opener project, but also for the Spinoza project. The 4th initiative I would like to share with you is the NOP. That's a translation of the Dutch abbreviation, and it is standing for the Networked Open Polytechnic. And Polytechnic is not exactly the right word, but we have the system of academic universities and what we call hogescholen, and hogescholen are more or less, let's say, the new universities, as you know, from the UK. So that is how they call themselves these days, are universities for applied sciences. That's what they like to call themselves. The research universities, of course, are a bit skeptic about this whole new movement, but not myself. I'm very happy with this movement because I think it's important to have a good system of higher education which is very diverse. Now, the funny thing in our country was that there is an open university which is oriented towards academic and research education. There's no open university for applied sciences or open polytechnic. So we decided to establish a second track through higher education, again for lifelong open and flexible learning, but then in a professional and vocational context, and not to establish a new entity, but to explore a more innovative open business model with an open network of collaborating institutions or faculties, using open source, using open access, and of course using open content. Rather than cloning the OUNL in a new entity, we would like to have a very light form of organization for this new initiative. How are we going to do that? Is to develop new programs. They're all new. And we do that in networks of people working together, the best experts in the country, and that depends, of course, on the domain. So the people can come from, for one domain, they can come from 3 or 4 universities of applied sciences, and for other domain, they can come from another combination of universities. The major characteristics of this initiative are, of course, the first thing is to use OER. The second one is to use modularity as a very important characteristic for these educational programs, so we can take just a course, or we can take a combination of courses or a full program. The assessment and recognition of prior learning is very important. Workplace learning, the facility of learning communities, and to offer these programs in a regional setting, but that in a national structure, national infrastructure, because that's more efficient to do. And of course there's a strong link with the professional practice. Now what happened is very strange. If you see this timetable, you see that in 2007, it's more than 2 years ago, we initiated this concept. And there was a lot of support. And it took a year, last year, February 2008, to have this concept being adopted by all stakeholders in our country, by the employers' organizations, the trade unions, the branch organizations for higher education, and the government itself. And it's being adopted in a national lifelong learning action plan. And then nothing happened. The plan was there, and everybody was very enthusiastic about the idea. Nothing happened. So we decided, okay, if the government is doing nothing, we have to continue, because we are in a very dynamic process and we have to continue with this idea. So what we did is to, and then you see it's almost 1.5 years later. That's why this timetable is a bit strange. So we had to engage universities in our country to collaborate with us and to put money into this project. And but that was pretty successful. And the first domain that we chose was informatics, because it's a very important domain for this professional education. And it took a while to have this accredited, and actually this month the accreditation decision will come to us, and I'm pretty confident that we'll get this accreditation as a joint effort of OUNL with 4 universities for applied sciences. And then it will start in January 2010 without any additional government money. And then we would like to extend this step by step with other domains, so management sciences, and psychology, law, and so on. This is the guy who's running the project, Ben Janssen. There's no site already for this project, so you cannot visit that, but if you'd like to hear more, you can send him a mail and he will be quite happy to reply. The last one is the most interesting one, which is the real national one. It's called Wikiwijs, and it goes back to the observed success of, let's say, the OER initiatives that we have seen until now. And also what you see is that there's an increasing accumulation of projects in our country at secondary schools and also even at primary schools. It's coming up now. And we had a recent new policy which also, because it was negatively seen by many people, and the policy is school books for free, and I should explain that. 2 years ago, our parliament decided that we should get away from the high cost for parents that they are paying any year for the books for their children. In our country, you pay about 800 euros a year for buying these books, so that's quite expensive, and the parliament decided well, that should be over now. And so they changed the system. The parents don't have to pay anymore, but somebody has to pay the books, of course. So the government is the entity that is paying the bill now. That runs about 320 million euros every year, so it's quite a big budget. And so they gave the budget to the schools, and the schools have to buy the books. And of course they buy the books from the publishers. It's a very silly model and a very expensive model, and the publishers are very happy with this model, you can understand that. So there was a lot of debate in our country, and we on the OER philosophy had a discussion with the minister that he should try to think about other means to have this working. And so that debate on school books for free was, I think, an important driver for what's going on now in our country. Because if you would have 320 million euros to spend on content development, I think you can do quite a lot, and even much better. Now, in September last year, we had an advice of the National Education Council to the Parliament, and their advice was to make more use of OER for innovation of education. And then in October 2008, we had a chat with the Minister of Education about a very interesting report. You probably know that. It's a report from the Indian National Knowledge Commission, and it's called Report to the Nation 2006-2009. And that report says that India should convert completely to open access and to open educational resources. And that's an advice to the Prime Minister in India. And well, I said to the Minister, look, here is India, an emerging economy, setting out the strategy. What should we do in Europe? What should we do in our own country? And that was a pretty convincing argument, I think. Together with the school books for free policy, together with the advice of the Education Council, I think the Indian report was instrumental for the next step. And it took only 2 months, in December 2008, that he decided to launch Wikiwijs as a national initiative. And here you see a picture of the minister. He's a politician, so he likes to be on television, as you can understand, and you should give him that honor. And so he was in the 8 o'clock news in December launching this initiative. And Wikiwijs is initially focusing on secondary schools because of the school books for free policy, but also primary schools and community college education. But it also should include higher education, where things are already running. In April this year, the Parliament gave broad support to this initiative, from left-wing to right-wing parties. They were all supportive. There was nobody was really against this idea. And in May 2009, the OUNL and another organization which is called KennisNet had the opportunity to start preparing this pretty complex and ambitious program. July 2009, we delivered the program plan, and 2 days ago I heard by mail that the minister gave his final okay and that he would submit it to the Parliament. Now the policy objectives. are to stimulate and to increase development and use of OER. That's a very, well, you can expect that that's one of the policy objectives, of course. The second one is to improve access to both, and that's, I think, interesting to know, to both open and closed digital learning materials. So it's to please the publishers, of course, and other people who are not yet convinced that OER is the future. So we should improve access not only to open educational resources, but also to closed digital learning materials. Important is that we should support teachers in arranging their own learning materials and in the professionalization, because not many teachers, of course, have been taught to develop learning materials at all. So it's a new wave and a new capacity that we should learn them. Then it is an objective to increase teacher involvement in the development and use of OER. Nowadays, I think less than 1% of teachers are active in developing learning materials, and the aim could be to increase that to 5 or maybe 10%. Of course, not all of the teachers would do that, but you can imagine a situation where there's more people involved in the development of learning materials, and that is also an important goal for our ministry to improve the reputation of the profession, to include other activities for teachers as compared to the current situation where we have a pretty low profile of the profession of a teacher in our country, and we should improve that. Of course, we can extend options for customized education, certainly in higher education and in the professional education area, and we could increase the quality of education through a more flexible and up-to-date type of learning materials. Wikiwijs will be an open internet-based platform for teachers and professors where they can find, use, and develop open learning materials. Open means free learning materials in terms of access, use, adaptation, and distribution. Wikiwijs will offer a repository, of course, of OER materials, but it will also offer a repository to digital educational resources, both open and closed, both free access and access to be paid for, both public and commercial. That's the compromise, more or less, with the publishing world. It should also offer an easy-to-use arrangement and development set of tools for teachers and professors, and we should give support to those teachers and professors when creating and using learning materials. Well, the name is pretty funny. I don't like the name, but because it's referring, one thing is okay, it's referring to the philosophy of Wikipedia. On the other hand, it's referring to Wikipedia also as if we would use the functionality of Wikipedia and the user interface of Wikipedia, which is not the case. And we had a lot of debate on this term. There were strong advocates, the minister himself, for example, because he has this metaphor of Wikipedia which he knows, and he likes the wording Wikiwijs, sounds very good. Whereas there were fierce opponents because it gives the wrong connotation. But meanwhile, we have submitted this program plan, and the name is in the program plan, and the parliament is leading the program. So I don't think that we can get rid of the name anymore. And it's not the most important thing, of course, but still, I would have loved to have another name. And we have proposed that, but here you see what a politician does. He has introduced this name, and he wants to stick to that, and because it was his invention, right? Okay. That's the disadvantage of getting into policy. An important activity, maybe the most important one, is to see commitment and engagement of many organizations in the country. So here you see, on top you see LUX is the organization of the secondary school students. LSVB is the organization of higher education students. The VO Raad is the branch organization for secondary education. And all these organizations have been involved in one way or the other, and we have had chats with them and big debates, and so they showed commitment, but that's not enough. Commitment is fine, but engagement is better. So what we want to do is to engage all these organizations as much as possible into the project, and certainly the most important people are the teachers and the professors themselves and don't forget the learners, the students. We've had a big debate with the publishing organization of educational publishers, and they said they support this initiative. They even wrote a letter to the Parliament that they are supporting this initiative. But if you are reading the letter very precisely, you see what they're, of course they have to support it. If they wouldn't do that, it's kind of a problem for them. And they are supportive because it's their vision that in the future mainstream will remain, the publishing's books, 95% more or less should remain to come from the educational publishers, and 5% is some interesting stuff around those books. I don't share that vision, and it will not be the case in the future, but that's more or less what they try to defend. So they try to defend their own business. I can understand that, but this is one of the trickiest things for this project, because the publishers are very powerful in our country, and they have a good connection with the ministry and with Parliament, so we have to be very careful that on the one hand we are in touch with them and give them the occasion to get involved. On the other hand, the philosophy is clear, and we should stick to that. Oh, this is the organization picture, not too interesting maybe, but the interesting part is the 5 projects which are shown here. There's one project on content, there's another one on professionalization, teacher training, and of course there's one on technology, there's one on communities, and there's an important one on research and evaluation, which I'm very happy about that. The ministry was also underlining that this project would need a lot of research and evaluation, because you can think about OER as a nice new concept, but you should certainly be aware of what is the effect of the introduction of OER in education and also in the economy of the country. The planning now is that by August we have submitted the program plan, so that's the end of the planning stage. By December we are aiming to launch a beta version with 3 focus subjects, and one of the subjects will probably be mathematics as a very important subject, also a subject that runs over all the educational sectors. And we should also be careful with that we choose subjects that are involved in secondary, primary and community college sectors. In September 2010, we should start a rollout to other subjects and other domains and other educational sectors, like the higher education sector. And then by January 2011, we are to deliver a next plan for the years that are coming. And we have told the ministry already that this is not a simple ball game. So we're starting a project which runs about, in our view, 5 to 10 years. And even then, that's more or less a decade that you should apply to this plan. So it's not a fast thing. And of course, they are more optimistic from the budget point of view. It should be done very fast, but we stick to a step-by-step process that is really important. The basic principles for Wikiwijs are that primarily, and that's an important input from the ministry, it was meant for teachers. For, by and of teachers, but of course you can say that at the same time it's not being constrained to have others, experts and practitioners and students to give contributions to the content. The ministry is a bit afraid of the effect of this opening up to any other people, but at the same time it's an important part of the philosophy, and of course you just cannot keep people away from uploading their materials and changing materials. But then, of course, there's a quality issue, which I will tell a little bit on later. There's no payment for creating, editing, or acquiring learning materials, so the publishers would be happy if we would have a lot of money available for acquiring their learning materials. We won't do that. The idea is there's enough money running in the institutions and people are paid salaries for being a teacher or a professor, so it should be possible to get them involved in creating and editing learning materials without additional money. Of course, in the beginning you need some extra money, but as a structural approach, it should not be necessary. And there's also no payment for moderating the communities, unless it will appear to be necessary in practice. We don't know yet. We are going to find it out. The other principle is that we're going to use to a maximum existing components of the OUNL, of Kennisnet, and all other publicly funded educational organizations. So, for example, there's an organization which is called SLO, and they are developing curricula for secondary education, and all the materials that are coming available there are or should be connected to Wikiwijs, and SLO is supposed to do that for their own budget, so they don't get extra money to do that. And the thing is then that we should connect many activities of all those organizations to the Wikiwijs initiative. Of course, open standards and open source are mandatory, but we have to make it at least one exception. I'm sorry about that, but we have to do that. All OER learning materials and materials for professionalization will be published under CC BY. That has been decided already. So it's the most liberal Creative Commons license that we are using. And there was a lot of discussion about that. And we certainly have to spend quite some time in debating this with the teachers because they have to understand that, and they have to understand the advantages of the CC BY license. And professionalization is not only meant for teachers, but also very important to professionalize the management to get this initiative done. I was already anticipating on the quality issue, the ministry was in the beginning more or less of the opinion that we could work like Wikipedia, and the wisdom of the crowds will do the work. Well, we know that's an important process, but we also have the view that that's not enough. So we were proposing to have 3 additional mechanisms. The one is a peer review mechanism. The other one is the adoption organization or groups mechanism, like in Connexions. And the third one is, of course, to have competent participants by professionalize them. And we don't know yet whether this is the good framework for quality assurance, but that's what we are going to research also in the research project about the adequacy of this framework for quality assurance. This, of course, is important in terms of if anybody can upload his materials to the Wikiwijs repository, we should make sure that there's no rubbish on it. And that's also where the ministry was very afraid of, that it would be a chaos and the quality would not be good enough. Well, the budget is okay for this project. For 2009, the second half of this year, in 2010, the ministry is putting into 4.4 million euros. You can understand that we cannot spend money on content development of this budget, but it's enough to get the project started. And of course, there's also those budget components from the different publicly funded educational organizations like the OUNL. So we put in our own money as well. And there's a lot of effort of many people. And if you would add that effort and capitalize it in euros, I think there would be more than 4.4 million euros that we are running. When we submitted the first draft of the program plan, it was on the day that I received a mail from Kathy Casserly about the Obama announcement of the 50 million initiative for community colleges in the US. And I immediately forwarded that mail, of course, to the ministry, showing that we are not at all standing alone. We are just part of a worldwide process where in many countries you see initiatives coming up, and this is just one of all those further developing initiatives. And I was quite happy to read about the US initiative in the announcement of Barack Obama. Even it was instrumental for us to show that the US is putting money into it as well, and even putting money into content development in that case. So this is to wrap up more or less. 5 initiatives, starting in 2006 with an institutional initiative, not knowing what would happen. It was kind of a start of an expedition, and a fascinating expedition. As you all know here in this room, I think OER is really exciting, and we don't know yet what the real future will be. But I was quite happy that starting in 2006 with an interesting initiative by some people at our university, within 3 years it happened that there is something like a national strategy coming up now. And I would just like to share that with you after the policy discussion we had on Wednesday, just to give an example of a country where at a policy level, with a minister, I must admit, who of course likes to score on this project within his term. So we have only 1.5 years to show that this will work. But okay, that's fine with me, and it's just a good step, I think, forward. And of course, I would like to thank you for your attention to this policy talk, and I would like to thank my co-workers, Robert Schuwer and Ben Jansen, for their input. And please keep in touch with the Dutch.
Could you clarify a little further your initiatives in putting this material in English? Because of course this has huge implications for the world, and we haven't seen much of this document.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's of course it's necessary to have our materials in Dutch, certainly for primary, secondary education and the community colleges. But for higher education, it's more logical to extend also to the English language. Now, the first thing that we will do, I think, is to use the Spinoza series as a mechanism to not only publish in Dutch but also in English. And I'm sure for higher education, if we are going to develop more materials, certainly at the master's level, Delft, for example, has English published materials. We will also get into that area, and I'm sure the other universities in our country who are very active internationally in attracting students will do that. Yeah.
Can you say a word about the role of the communities in the Wikiwijs initiative?
There are some very active communities already, and they are mainly active in the secondary education area. So there's a lot of teachers, because of this school books for free policy, there was a lot of opposition against this idea, and then schools decided to set up their own initiative and creating communities of teachers working over schools, over the barriers of schools, and so that's an important start already in different subjects where there has been developed materials and they're working together not only within the schools but also across schools. But it's just the start of a whole new way of working, I think.
So domains, basically, domains of communities.
Yeah.
Are they online communities or just kind of people getting together face to face?
It's both. They're certainly online also, yeah. David, yeah.
How much debate, if any, was there about the particular Creative Commons license that you chose?
I must admit that the Dutch OUNL initiative, but that we started in 2006, we did not have this CC BY license, and we decided to have a non-commercial clause into that. And we experienced the disadvantage of that because it's not only that the commercial providers cannot use it, but also we ourselves cannot use it for commercial application. And if you want to make money out of your learning materials, it's important to be able to bring the materials to other contexts. So we ourselves were pretty much convinced, and Robert Schuwer was, I think, a very important debater in this case, to change, in the Wikiwijs project, to change this philosophy. And also we had a report from SURF, and SURF is the National Organization of Technical Infrastructure, just coming out before we were submitting the program plan, And that was also advocating the CC BY license. And, but that's, let's say, a top-down approach. So the server organization was positive about that. We were, the ministry was kind of hesitating. The commercial, the publishers were very happy. Okay, that's fine, so we can use it. But I think the teachers and the professors have to be convinced of the advantages of this CC BY license, and we are still in the beginning of the process of discussing that with them. We should spend quite some time on communication with the teachers, with the school management on these issues.
Can you say a few words about how the 4.4 million euros will be used across the 5 projects?
Yeah, well, it's more or less equal. So the OUNL is to run 3 of the 5 projects, the one on content, the one on professionalization, and the one on research. And KennisNet will do the one on communities and the technology project. But more or less, the projects have a similar amount of money.
And when you say professionalization, can you tell us a bit more about what that involves? What will happen under that particular project?
Yeah. There's not many teachers around that have learned how to develop learning materials and to work with OER. So we think it's important to make it a success that they are getting involved in how to do this. So we would like to organize classes, we'd like to organize online courses, we'd like to organize communities around how to improve on developing OER, using OER, arranging OER, and so on. So this is the major focus for the professionalization, which is giving courses, giving classes, getting people together, organizing seminars and conferences and so on. And also to change the current system of teacher training, which does not include at all this specific activity. So it should be included in the new way of teacher training.
You talked about in Wikiwijs how there had to be a compromise with the publishers to let them into that space. I'm wondering, do you think that will be problematic in the implementation? When the users and the faculty go to the site to either contribute or take from the site, will they be, if I only want to look at free and open materials, will it be easy to search by that, or will it be confused by publisher materials that are for-profit mixed in? Will it be a difficult experience, or will it be a value add that they're...
I don't know yet, but I'm prepared for more struggles with the publishers, and I think you just can. It's understandable. If you would be a publisher, a conventional publisher, I would say, of course you try to defend your business, and that's what they do. And it's a multi-million business that they're running in our country. So I'm prepared for new debates and for dirty tricks. And for their trying to get to the ministry, to get to the parliament, to lobby. They have a very strong lobby, and we have experienced that already in writing the program plan. So writing the program plan was an interactive process with the ministry. And every day we got emails from the people from the ministry. Have you been in touch with that organization? Have you talked to them? Have you seen the comments of the publishers? And what are you going to do with that? So it's a permanent process of being aware of what's going on and also being very clear. So we had a meeting with the publishers, and the first thing they said was, we are talking to Fred Mulder, and he was writing an article in the national newspaper last year about OER as being the future. Now you're chairing the steering committee of Wikiwijs. What does that mean? That was a very dirty question. And so I had to answer. What it means is that I'm still advocating OER, of course, as a very wise way of getting to the future. At the same time, being a chair of the steering committee, I have to be pragmatic. But I have to tell you that if your document that you're sending to the parliament, if your vision would be, it's the 95% story, that 95% would be mainstream, coming from you, I don't think that is the future. And so the debate was just starting, and it will continue to take place. And but they're the only stakeholder. You must know the only stakeholder that are really not exactly on the right side. And so I think by the end we'll succeed. Yeah. But I think you're right. It's one of the most tricky issues in the process. And the other one, I think, is the involvement of teachers. We really have to take care of getting them engaged as massively as possible from the start, and also getting engaged the management of the schools. But I'm pretty confident that will work. Yeah.
I'm interested in the research and evaluation component or project of a larger project. And I think it's really important to, as you're doing the research, to feed that back, or those findings back into the communities, so that there's action learning and implementation going on, as opposed to a static set of findings and then you have to figure out how to implement them after, so it's in a report. My question is will you be investigating the role of culture in terms of, how it affects adaptation and use, and also culture as it transitions, because as you build a pool of people who are, working, remixing, using OERs, their mindset, approach, values, they actually shift a little. So will that be measured over time as well?
There's two types of research that we have to undertake. The one is the, let's say, the evaluation part, measurement of effects of introducing OER, and the other one is a more fundamental one, which you are referring to. I'm sorry. And that's a more long-term type of research, I would think. Also, the effect measurement is also a long-term thing. So the plan for the research project is being done by Robert Schuer, and it includes different types of research. I'm sorry, it's really terrible. It's not because I have to answer the question in research that I'm coughing. Because no, I'm very happy with the focus on research. But there's a lot of specific projects that are to be designed in the next couple of months. So it's difficult to give a precise answer. But be sure that because we have a very big department on learning technology in our university, and we are running the research project ourselves, that it will not only be an effect measurement research project, but also a more fundamental project. And we would like to tie that into this community as well, of course. Well, it's about 10 o'clock, almost. More questions? If not, I'm probably supposed to close the session now, yeah? So why not take a coffee and have a further discussion around the coffee? Thank you very much.